Alessandro. Okay, here's that photo we took of Levi at the picnic area on the camping chair. So here, let me show you everything I do. Highlights down, shadows up. Then I hold down Alt and I click on the whites to find the clipping point. I bring it to the right. There's a clipping point right here. So then I'll back it off a bit. Ooh, back it off a bit till there's no more clipping. Yeah, so now there's no more clipping, but that looks super contrasty to me. So I'm going to back it off even more. Yeah, like maybe like that is good. Same thing for blacks. Click on Alt, and then there's some, looks like wherever there's, right here, there's some clipping. So I want to bring that up so that there's no clipping. And again, this is just making it the really soft image, the opposite of contrasty. This is the way I edit most of my photos, but obviously if I was doing like a fashion edit or something like this, I'd use kind of the opposite technique where you want more contrast, you want more pop. But here I'm going for softness. I don't mess with the white balance too much unless it's really off. I mean, maybe this is more technically accurate, but I think as shot was just as good. I always leave profile. I just leave it on Adobe Color. The other ones add some weird contrast and saturation to it, so I just leave it on. Well, actually, this one looks more contrasty than the other ones. I don't touch texture, clarity, dehaze. Oh, but one thing I do is I'll do it right now since I'm on the top. This Lightroom has a vignette feature, post-crop vignetting, that you can. But see, I think this looks not that good because it's really oval. And it's very noticeable here. It's not very smooth. I prefer my vignette to go really all the way through the whole image and just be a really, really gradual transition. So what I do is I'll take this radial filter right here, negative 1.5, something like that. I'll start in this corner, drag it all the way across the screen to down here, and then I place it right on his face. And see, to me that looks so much better. Maximum feather, obviously, and then just really smooth and really gradual, really nice. So that's that. I don't mess with the tone curve. I will just saturate yellows, maybe about negative 50, and oranges to about -10. The reason is, I don't like yellows and oranges that much. And when we add in soft contrast later, which you'll see, that adds some saturation back into the skin. So right now, and then he can kind of end up looking like The Simpsons. So I just desaturate those. To me, that looks really good, pretty natural. And like I said, we'll add it in later, and we can fix it later. For sharpening, I go based off the eyelashes. This window is too small, so let me just zoom in with this thing. So this is taken on a A7R4, which is a 61 megapixel camera. It's super sharp. It's almost too sharp for its own good. It's so you can't. It's sometimes you don't want to sharpen too much because it'll take away from the softness of the image and make it look more super digital. But I always go by the eyelashes. I want those to be, I want them to be sharp. So to me, that looks pretty good. That's maybe right about there, 70. And then for masking, I will. Am I holding Alt? Yeah, holding Alt and just dragging it all the way to the right. I want the eyelashes to be sharp, but I don't want to see the sharpening happening on the skin, the sharpening happening on his eye. I don't want it sharpening anywhere else. So I'm going to drag it to the right until there's only the white bit shows what's being sharpened. And right now there's only sharpening on the lashes. There's a little bit if you can see right here, there's a little bit spilling over, but it's, I just don't want any on the skin. That's my main goal, because that would look horrible. So that looks pretty good. I go down to lens correction, chromatic aberration. If it's backlit, you'll get those purple. I don't see much chromatic aberration on this. You'll get some on the hairs or leaves on a tree or something like this. I usually, well, here I'll click it here, but I think a better way to do it is just to go into Photoshop and desaturate magenta, because that's all it is just sort of a magenta halo, and then just paint the desaturated magenta bit wherever you see it, but I don't see anything here, so whatever, I'll just click it. Profile correction is if the software knows what lens you use. Here I use a 70mm, that's a zoom lens, so there's a bit of bowing here. If you click on that, it'll take it out. Any lens distortion. Transform, if I need to rotate it, if the horizon's uneven or something like this, that's what that's for. If you have some vertical lines, let's say I wanted to make this line and this line perfectly square for some reason, like if you were standing in front of like a building or a window that needed to be square, then you can hit guided and just draw the lines that you want to be vertical, and the software will automatically make these now perfectly vertical, perfectly up and down. That looks all right. It does stretch out his head a little bit, so I don't know, maybe, but it looks, yeah, it looks all right. It kind of has a big head up here. Actually, I kind of like that. Maybe I'll leave it like that. And yeah, so that's that. You can do the same thing for horizontal too if it was tilted this way. So okay, we'll leave that. Vignetting, like I said, I do it with the radio filter. I don't do it with this tool. For the calibration, my camera always makes everything a little bit magenta-y. So I'll take the shadows and I'll do like a -10 on that. And then on the blue primary, I usually crank it to the left, maybe -20. I just think that looks a little bit better. There, he looks a little bit of, Sony's have that kind of a greenish tint, so, and Canons always have a pink tint. And so if I was shooting on a Canon, I'd do the opposite. So anyway, that's that. Before, after. Maybe it's a little bit too much on the blue hue, but I think that makes it look a little bit better. And now, so that's about all I do in Lightroom. And yeah, so now I right click, export, and take it into Photoshop. And let's go to Photoshop. Okay, I'm in Photoshop. Is this working? Is it working? Test, test, test. Yeah, I hope so. Alright, I'm in Photoshop. Now, first thing I do is fix the composition. So I am going to crop in a bit here, crop in this empty bit looks bad, so I'm just going to take that away, and maybe something like that. So here on his hair, nah, that's not so good. On his face here, on his face there, that looks alright. Yeah, so he's sort of, and then his eyes, I want that line to be right on his eyes, so that looks alright there. Something like that maybe. Yeah, okay, that looks alright. I'm going to fix it. There's a little bit of light here and this thing here. I'm going to take the rectangular marquee tool, draw a line on this whole side, hit Control J, Control T, hold down Shift, and just drag that part off into the off image. And then let's see, I'll do the same thing over here. Control J, Control T, drag that off so that part is no longer there. So you can see before and after. That's, you have this bit and this bit. These are now gone. And you know, the background is blurry, so you can't really tell that we've done anything. And now let's see. I will now fix. So composition's okay. I will now fix his skin blemishes. So zoom in. I'm going to do a real quick kind of example of what I do. Normally I'll spend a little bit more time, but you know, just for the purposes of demonstration, anything that's big like this, take the patch tool, circle it, and then just drag it to an area right next to it. So it'll take the texture of the skin, but keep the luminosity of this part. So that you know, fixes that. So there's another, I don't know, it looks like he's got some dry skin or something, I don't know, right there, so we'll fix that. Maybe up here, that's better. He's got crumbs all over his face, which, I mean, it's kind of cute, so I might even leave it if I was doing this picture for real, but since this is just a demonstration, I'll just retouch it to the max. Get rid of the mocos, stride mocos. For little tiny bits, you can use the spot healing brush and just click on it like that, and it kind of does the same thing. I think the patch tool is more precise. I like the patch tool better, but same idea. Let's see if that line, if I put that there. Oh yeah, that's not so good. So yeah, see, that's not good. Let's take this bit right here. Here, actually, I'm going to just mask out that part. Because that looks horrible. Yeah. Yeah, this is an example where the patch tool would be better. Oh, actually, hang on. I need a new layer. Need a new layer. Control J. Why is it doing that? Weird, huh? Oh, because I'm selected. Control J. There. Patch tool. Here we go. Well, that doesn't look good. Anyway, yeah. Now I have to fix it because it's driving me crazy. Okay, done. Okay, that's the idea. You get the idea. Here, I'll fix this zit that he always has on his head. And if you want to, you know, okay, that's the idea. Here's before. Here's before, after. Well, I got rid of the other ones. You get the idea. Next thing I'll do is I'll fix all the uneven highlights and shadows on his skin. In order to see him better, I do a channel mixer, monochrome. I crank the blue all the way up, crank the red all the way down. This makes it super contrasty, and it just helps to be able to see all the uneven parts of his skin. So you see anything that's blotchy, like right here, right here, right here. There's some shadow. Any part that's uneven on his skin, I'm just going to even it out with the brush. So right now I'll keep it like that so I can see the uneven bits. I will create a new layer. Shift F5, fill it with 50% gray, blend mode to soft light, and then with a brush, a soft brush, opacity 100, flow 1. I just paint over any dark bits of his skin, and this just lightens up those shadowy areas of the skin, and anything that's light, like right here, I'll shift to black and darken that. And the idea is just to make it real even, real smooth, soft skin. Again, if you were doing a different type of photo or a different type of shoot, you would do kind of the opposite of this, because this is removing all contrast. And you know, in fashion, you want to have the real defined cheekbones and the real defined parts of this, but I like soft. So I'm lightening any bit that's uneven. Let's see, where's my red? Let's raise it up a little bit. You can see this bit. Yeah, see here, right here, this is all uneven. So I'm gonna lighten this up. Lighten this up. I'll darken this. Lighten this so the dark bit is the same light brightness, lightness, luminosity as the light bit, making for evenness. Lighten up here in his eyes. You don't want to go crazy and make it look unnatural. You just want to smooth it out a little bit. Usually under the lip right here is a bit, on the sides of the mouth right here. So now, okay, so here's, you know, like I said, if I was doing this for real, I would maybe spend a lot more time and make it more precise. But I'm just, you know, showing you my workflow, and just so you get the idea of what I do. Oh man. Okay, so there's before. Here's before and after. Before and after. So as you can see, it makes it real smooth. There's before, after. It can be subtle, but I think it makes a difference. It makes it look softer and cleaner. Okay, so there's that. And now the next thing I'll do is I will create a blank layer, and anytime there's like a shadow, same thing that we did for the skin, dark parts of the background we're going to lighten them, and light parts we're going to darken them. This is I took a class from this Russian chick, and this is like her thing. She's really into soft transition. She would always say soft transition, more soft transition. No harsh shadows. So we're gonna get rid of anything that's a harsh shadow. We're just gonna paint it. I'm pressing I to get the eyedropper tool. I'm taking the color here from the light part of the background and painting that lighter color over the dark part with oh shit, yeah, 10% opacity brush. So there's that. Take the light part, 10% opacity, paint it over the dark part. Maybe here I'll take a bit of his hair as well to make it. Maybe not. That looks kind of weird. Just trying to make it a more soft transition, as Elena would say. Well, whatever. I'm trying to just basically make the colors sort of flow together and not be as harsh when one color goes into another color. There's that. And now it looks less like a camping chair from Costco and more like a sort of canvasy background. So you can see it's a lot softer. Do the same thing with this jacket. Maybe have like just a quick brush of any of the harsh shadows, because you don't want it to be harsh. That's the whole point. Make everything very soft. So there's that. So that looks about right. Next thing I'll do is I'll make the eyes pop a little bit. I make a new layer, fill it with 50% gray. I change the blend mode to overlay. Oh, actually, here, let me show. This is something I always do, because I don't know why nobody will ever notice this but me, but in an outdoor photo, the eyes always pick up blue from the sky, and if I crank the saturation on blue, you can see what I'm talking about. This drives me crazy. I don't know why it drives me crazy. Nobody will ever see that tiny reflection of his eye, but I always notice it. And especially sometimes if it's on a sunnier day, a brighter day. It was real cloudy that day, if you remember. So on a sunny day, you'll get blue in this part of the eye too, and then he starts to look like the guys from Dune, and it annoys the shit out of me. So I always just desaturate blues entirely. Here, so you can see before, after. It's super subtle on this picture, but I notice it anyway. So maybe I'll just use cyans too. I'll desaturate cyans. And then Control I, hit the brush, 100% opacity, and now where's my brush? That's a big brush. Now I'm just going to paint it over here because I don't want it to affect any other part of the image where there's supposed to be blue. I just want to get it out of his eye reflection. So I'll do the same thing here. I'll paint that desaturated bit over his eye. And actually, I don't think there's any blue anywhere else in the image. Yeah, there's not really any blue anywhere. So here, I'll just leave it on the whole image then. Okay, so now that I've taken the blue out of the eye, I'm going to, with a brush that's 100% opacity, let's say 3% flow. Normally I'd use a 1, but just this way you can see what I'm doing better. I'm going to, on the lighter part of the eye, I'm going to paint white just to lighten that up, and then on the little reflections of light, I'm going to lighten those. And then on the darker part of the eye, I'm going to switch to black and darken those, so this gives the eye more pop and contrast. And then around the eye, like where a woman would normally put eyeliner, I'm just going to darken that the same way. Switch to this eye, darken this, darken the top. I'm going to lighten the reflections of light. That's too much over there. Lighten this part of the eye. Darken the perimeter of the eye. So here's before and after, before and after. It gives a little pop to the eyes. I mean, it's subtle. You can make it as crazy as you want. I mean, that I might have gone a little bit too crazy here, but you can at least see what I'm doing. So there's that. You can do the same thing with the lips. Sometimes I'll do it especially here when there's not much definition. I'm going to just reduce the flow. Dark, you want to paint with a black brush. You want to darken the top part of the lip and where the lips meet, and then lighten the part that reflects light. So it's kind of like that. It just gives it more definition. So that's that. Let's see, what else will I do? Add a little bit of light maybe around his head. I'm taking the color from his hair. Maybe just crank it up a little bit brighter. 10% opacity brush. Just add a bit of. Nah, that doesn't look that good actually. Okay, well, sometimes I'll add in but for some reason it's not looking that good here. So now what we're going to do is add that soft contrast that I was talking about. So you do Control J, and this is what's going to give it the painting kind of look. Filter, Nick Collection, which is free from Google. Just Google Nick Collection and you'll find it somewhere. Silver Effects Pro is one of the plugins on the Nick Collection. It's a black and white plugin. And dude, actually, since you like black and white so much, you should check this one out, because there's a lot of control that you have over black and white, different tonality, and there's a lot you can do with it. I don't do black and white so much, but Anyway, it's got this feature called soft contrast that I haven't seen anywhere else, and I love it. So I crank this to 60. I do tonality protection, highlights and shadows all the way, and that's it. I hit OK. It's going to convert it into a black and white image, but then what I do is I switch the blend mode to luminosity, and that gives it that's the look. It takes, like I said, it's contrasty, but not it darkens the skin, adds a bit of color, so it's more saturated, but it's like a nice contrast that doesn't look shitty to me. I don't know how to explain it other than that. I'll usually lighten it a bit because that soft contrast does darken the image a bit, so maybe something like this. It's too much. Like that, yeah, it's good. And then if it does saturate it, if it oversaturates it, to me this looks okay. If it oversaturates it, you can just pop in like a -10. I think it looks okay. I'll do -10, and this is usually how I do the soft contrast portion of it. So there's before, after, before, after. You can see, look at how much better the hair looks with that soft contrast. There's the sort of harsh white, the light reflected, which just adds like softness and color. See, and there's a little bit more detail where there didn't used to be, I think, right here. I know, I love that plugin, man. Yeah, so there's that. I don't remember where I learned that too. I wasn't from the Russian girl. It was from, I don't know, some other class I took. Okay, so then I'm kind of done. Sometimes I'll experiment with different color, like different filters. Underwater is one I use a lot because it kind of takes away some of that magenta-ness. Maybe if you just add in like a little bit. Now it's getting back to green, but I don't know, it looks alright to me. Let's see how that looks. Yeah, something like that, maybe like a 10% or something. Yeah, that looks alright. It just cuts the magenta a little bit. For some reason that Sony is always a little magenta-y, kind of like a Canon. Maybe it looks better without it, I don't know. I'll leave it off. And then another thing you can do is there's on the Nik collection you can experiment with different kind of and they're cross processing. There's some real cool different kind of color scheme effects. I'm not exactly sure like the science of it, but you can, if you sometimes you get some ideas for a different direction or different look. Anyway, but I think this looks fine without it. That's about it. Let me think. Is there anything else that I normally would do? I mean, that's kind of my workflow, man. So yeah, tell me what you think. Send me some photos. Just see if you can send me a photo of like a portrait or something that you do. See, I'll tell you. What I think. I'd be curious to see if somebody else could copy this workflow and do it the same way I do it, because I don't know. I don't know if it's like what I'm doing or the reason why I'm doing it is more important. So anyway, all right, buddy. Good luck. See you.